Very soon, we will finally have our hands on Pokemon Legends ZA, the game that will finally continue the story of the Kalos region, which has lain dormant for over a decade. But it's been so long since then that I'm sure many of you have forgotten exactly what happened in Kalos, who some of the major characters were, and how the story weaved, stuff like that. So, in preparation for the new game, let's take some time to talk about the history of the Kalos region. Also, if you like this video and you want to see more like it, then I did something very similar for Unova, Paldea, and Kitakami back when the Indigo Disc released a couple of years ago. So if you want to see more like this, then go ahead and check that out. The story of Kalos is one of life and death, a cycle at once both natural and terrifying, represented by its legendaries, Xerneas and Yveltal. Xerneas is said to provide the world with life, energizing and healing people and Pokemon alike. On the other hand, Yveltal takes. When it's around, people and Pokemon are said to die en masse, having their life energy stolen from them. They are two sides of the same coin, representative of the eternal cycle that defines our world. 3,000 years ago, Kalos was a place of peace. People and Pokemon lived and worked together in harmony. This led to an era of great technological innovation. Many fantastic inventions came to be, such as the Anastar City Sundial, which is speculated to be created by ancient technology, using both the power of legendary Pokemon and fallen space debris. This innovation was spearheaded by one man in particular. He was called AZ, because he was both the beginning and the end of this wonderful era of history. Using his knowledge, AZ rose to become king, being the first to unite Kalos under a single crown. The era he created, however, was imperfect. While many people had risen to success and opulence, many still found themselves in poverty. The gap between those who had and those who had not only grew. Eventually, those who had not rose up to fight against this social stratification. They were led by AZ's brother, a jealous and selfish man who used the people's plight to forge his own crown. He founded his own separate nation within Kalos and went to war with his own brother. The war was brutal. There are legends about Xerneas and Yveltal being active participants in the war as well. However, it's speculated in-game that they weren't literally there, and were instead used as metaphors for the heavy toll that the war took on all involved. Over time, the war grew even more violent, to the point where the king needed to conscript his own beloved Pokemon, a Floette, gifted to him by his late mother. But the next time he saw that Pokemon, it was in a coffin, having been killed in combat. Driven by grief, AZ worked tirelessly to overcome the barrier between life and death, and return this beloved Pokemon to his side. To this end, he created a machine that could pierce the veil of mortality, powered by the life energy of Pokemon, which would come to be known as Infinity Energy. To the end of resurrecting Floette, he murdered countless Pokemon to give the machine the power it needed. These Pokemon would later be buried along Route 10, with the stones running along it marking their grave sites. He would also harness the power of either Xerneas or Yveltal, though the blast wasn't strong enough to kill the Pokemon. With all of this combined power, Floette was successfully resurrected as the Eternal Flower. Infinity Energy also washed over AZ, granting him a larger body and eternal life. But despite Floette being returned to him, AZ was still filled with rage. He turned the machine from a tool into a weapon, using it to end the war by decimating both sides of the conflict. As I said, the beginning and the end. Floette was horrified to see the senseless death caused in her name. When she looked at AZ, she could no longer see the human with whom she had once shared a bond. So she left him, disappearing into the ether. Heartbroken, AZ went searching for her, and spent many years traveling the globe, hoping to repent for what he had done. The destruction of the Ultimate Weapon also left an effect on AZ's brother. He came to believe that the Ultimate Weapon was too much power for a man to wield. Power like that, he had told his children, was better left to a god. He buried the weapon underground, beneath what would eventually become Geosenge Town. Its location will remain a secret to all except for those descended from him. Despite the disappearance of AZ, the monarchy would still continue for many years. It's unknown if AZ had any children, or if his brother took the throne instead. One more effect of the Ultimate Weapon was the creation of the Megastones. Professor Sycamore believes that Megastones are normal evolutionary stones that were infused with infinity energy after the firing of the Ultimate Weapon. Mega Evolution comes not just from the power of the Megastones, but also the bond between trainer and Pokemon. Of course, Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire come to their own conclusions about Mega Evolution that are contrary to this, but that's in its own universe. And for now, we're only focusing on the lore within Kalos itself. The first known Mega Evolution within Kalos would be Lucario. He traveled to the Kalos region alongside its trainer. Exactly when this occurred is unclear, but the trainer would remain in Kalos, as his descendants, Gherkin, the Mega Evolution Guru, and his granddaughter, the gym leader Karina, still live in Shallora City to this day. Despite all of this, Mega Evolution wouldn't become a cultural touchstone within Kalos. It would remain hidden, only known to a select few, and all but unknown to the rest of the world. 800 years before the events of the game, Xerneas and Yveltal would end their natural life cycles. Each Pokemon lives for 1,000 years, before cocooning itself for another 1,000 to regain its strength. When each entered this form, they sent out an explosion of power. Xerneas, who collected life energy, created a vast forest, within which sat the tree which held Xerneas' soul. This also provided a large surge of energy to nearby people and Pokemon. Yveltal, on the other hand, would create an intimidating mountain, and its cocooning would kill humans and Pokemon for miles around. 300 years prior to the games, another war was fought, though the details of that war remain unclear. What we do know is that, after the war, the Parfum Palace would be built as a new home for the royal family of Kalos. The palace contained statues of Reshiram and Zekrom, suggesting some unknown historical connection between Kalos and Unova. At some point in the next few centuries, it seems like the royalty disappeared and lost power in the region, as, in the modern day, the palace was turned into a museum. Now we finally approach the contemporary history of Kalos, and we start to introduce some of our major characters. And we're going to start this off by talking about Augustine Sycamore. It seems like he was originally from Coraway Town, as he left himself a note there before leaving on his own journey. On this journey, he would spend some time training alongside Gherkin, though he found that he lacked the strength to wield Mega Evolution himself. He would also spend some time in the Sinnoh region, studying alongside its professor, Rowan. As Rowan's focus of study is in Pokemon evolution, Sycamore probably studied with him in hopes of understanding Mega Evolution. Eventually, Sycamore would open his own lab in Lumio City to focus his studies. He would also take on Sina and Dexio as his assistants. The other notable figure to discuss is Lysander, the descendant of AZ's jealous brother. Originally from Snowbell City, Lysander was a young genius who set out across the Kalos region to help people. He would give all of himself to others, and create wildly successful inventions such as the Holocaster, driving him to a celebrity status. However, the longer he worked to serve humanity, Lysander found himself embittered towards them. As time went on, people began to take his help for granted, asking for more and more. He became a misanthrope, who believed that the masses were corrupt and lazy, even as he saw the world's resources dwindling. He thought that the world could no longer trust in man, and needed to be cleansed by a god. Lysander eventually came to the conclusion that the best way to handle both of those situations was to wipe out humanity in its entirety, except for a hand-picked selection of those that he deemed worthy. He knew exactly what power he could use to complete this task, as his descent from AZ's brother meant that the history and location of the ultimate weapon had been passed down to him. Though he lacked the power and the key to the weapon, he had the intelligence to change those things. Lysander's chosen group would come to be known as Team Flare. Some among the group would include celebrities, such as the Elite Four member and Holocaster influencer Malva, as well as other scientists, including the Mad Xerosic. Not everybody he approached was interested, however. Take, for instance, Diantha, the movie star who served as the champion of the Kalos region, who dismissed Lysander's misanthropic philosophy when he tried to approach her. In the modern era, more and more people immigrated to Kalos, such as Unova's hiker Andy. Bill from the Kanto region, creator of that region's PC system, sent his friend Cassius to open a similar system within Kalos. Mr. Bonding, the inheritor of the powers of Hoenn's old men, would also arrive to spread the good word of O-powers. The retired Rhydon racer Grace would also come to Kalos, settling in Vanaville Town, alongside their child, who would become the game's protagonist. Given that Serena was given the role of the protagonist in Masters, that's who I'm going to use for this video as well. When Professor Sycamore learned about the arrival of Grace and her daughter, he took immediate interest. He was already in preparation to begin a new trainer on their journey, Callum, another Vanaville local who was the child of two prominent Pokemon battlers, hoping to make a name for himself in the region. However, with the arrival of Serena, Sycamore decided to expand his efforts to a small group, something that seems to have left a bit of a chip on Callum's shoulder. Alongside Serena and Callum, he also contacted Shauna, Tierno, and Trevor, gifting them all with Pokémon and Pokédexes. As for what specific Pokémon was given to who, I'm going to once again turn our attention to Masters, which showed that Serena got a Fennekin, Callum got a Froakie, and Shauna got a Chespin. Alongside completing the Pokédex and the region's gym challenge, Serena would also find herself at odds with Team Flare in their preparations for the ultimate weapon. Flare managed to capture one of the region's 2 legendary Pokémon to help power it. However, being only 800 years into their 1,000-year hibernation, the Pokémon were not at their full power, forcing Lysander to find other sources of power. A small group of grunts would be sent to Glimmering Cave to steal ancient Pokémon fossils that had been excavated. They may have also been drawn by rumors of Genesect being found in the cave. Those said rumors are unsubstantiated. Flare Admin Aliana would try to siphon energy from one of Kalos' 4 power plants, specifically one that processed space-based solar energy. Byrony and Celosia would take over the region's Pokeball factory. They likely would have used the Pokeballs they manufactured to collect more Pokemon whose lives they could sacrifice to the ultimate weapon. Mabel would lead a team to Frost Cavern to capture the powerful Abomasnow that lived in its depths. The same Abomasnow also carried an Abomasite, another source of infinity energy. At each of these places, Team Flare would be driven out by Serena and her friends. They were unable to stop Lysander from collecting the one thing that he was truly lacking, the key to the ultimate weapon, which AZ had kept around his neck for 3 millennia. After kidnapping him, Lysander was finally able to activate the ultimate weapon. Callum and Serena followed Lysander into its depths, capturing the legendary Pokemon that he had used to power it. Lysander tried to use what energy was left to doom everyone left in the building, but the protagonist managed to escape. Eventually, Serena would defeat Diantha to become the region's champion. At the celebration, AZ would challenge her to a battle. Not to defeat her, but to understand the power of a true trainer. Someone who shares love and respect with their Pokemon. Something that he had lost long ago. Upon his defeat, AZ would understand where he had gone wrong. And in this realization, Floette would finally return to him. Together, man and Pokemon would open a hotel. I mean, I guess he spent the entire last 3,000 years traveling, so he knows what travelers want, he knows what makes a good hotel, he actually has a lot of good experience for this job, so it kinda fits. In the aftermath of all this, most of Team Flare would be disbanded. Mabel, who had been in charge of the Frost Cavern raid, would turn over a new leaf, becoming a professor to the likes of Sycamore. All that remained of Team Flare would gather around Xerosic, who carried on his research from a hidden level of Lysander Labs. Xerosic's goal was the creation of the Expansion Suit, a suit with the ability to give its wearer superhuman reflexes, shapeshifting, and the ability to steal other trainers' Pokemon. It also had a remote control function, which allowed Xerosic to control the suit and whoever was inside of it. Malva and Chalmers, disgusted by Xerosic, would also leave Team Flare, and were more than happy to lend a hand towards his downfall. He found a test subject in Emma, the ward of the international police agent Looker. She was hoping to earn some money on the side in order to help pay back Looker for his kindness, not realizing that Xerosic was controlling her body as she slept. However, with the combined might of Looker, Serena, and Malva, she was freed from Xerosic's control. Emma wound up keeping the suit, and when Looker left Kalos, she took over his position as the leader of the Looker Bureau. Now let's take some time to talk about the various legendaries and mythicals that are in the game, and the first of these is Mewtwo. The most interesting thing about this Mewtwo is that it has a Megastone. Given that Mewtwo is an artificial Pokemon, the Megastone too must be artificial. The most likely people to have created it are Team Flare, who are trying to find the most powerful Pokemon to power the ultimate weapon, and Professor Sycamore, who of course has dedicated his entire life to studying Mega Evolution. I'll actually go even further and suggest that this Mewtwo is a separate Mewtwo from the one we saw in the Kanto games. That Mewtwo likely would not be interested in being studied by more scientists, so whoever wanted to create a Mega Mewtwo would likely need to find or create another one for their experiments. Similarly, we have 3 legendary birds, Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres. Well, okay, we only see one per playthrough, but I'm sure that all 3 are there. I talked about their appearance in Kalos some in my video on the 3 birds, but to keep it short, I think that these 3 are a different set of birds than we saw in the Kanto games, simply due to their distance from Kanto. We also already know that there are multiple sets of birds from the existence of the Galarian variants. The 3 are also connected to the Sea Spirit stat, which some people speculate is connected to Lugia. as part of a larger theory about Lugia being the trio master of the birds. But all of that's another theory for another video that I've already made, so let's move on. Going into the legendaries and mythicals new to the Kalos region, the easiest place to start is Volcanion. Volcanion has no lore. Its Pokédex entries don't relate to anything else, it doesn't have any dialogue about it, the Pokémon doesn't even appear on the map of any game, including Scarlet and Violet. I have nothing to say about it. Diancie, on the other hand, has lore. It isn't much, but apparently it's a mutated Carbink. Likely this mutation was caused by Infinity Energy, as it is also capable of Mega Evolving. Now going the complete opposite direction of this, Hoopa is extremely relevant to the rest of the series. It's a genie Pokemon with the ability to create portals between multiple universes. Likely it's somehow connected to Ultra Space, though I need to spend more time playing the Ultra games before I go into detail on that idea. It's also instrumental to the lore of Pokemon Masters, where it's paired with Leer, the founder of Passio and the Pokemon Master League. Hoopa is the reason why all these trainers from throughout the multiverse are able to come to Passio in the first place. Hoopa will also remain relevant in Legends ZA, being the main driving force behind the game's DLC. Finally, we have Zygarde. It's described as sort of protector of the environment. However, at some point, it was sealed in a cave deep underground, much like the Regis were in Hoenn. It was pretty much forgotten about until a coal mine accidentally intersected with its cave, releasing the Pokemon into the world once again. I find it likely that this Zygarde and the one from the Alola games are once again different Zygardes, given that Alola also has its own Terminus Cave. Zygarde is, once again, a Pokemon that really deserves its own video, so I hope we learn a little bit more about it in Legends ZA so I can talk about it more. Now that ends the events of X and Y, but that doesn't mean that the characters from this game didn't go on to affect the later games. Clement, the Lumia City gym leader, would be instrumental in the creation of the Rotom Dex, the next generation of Pokédex that would become the international standard in later games, eventually evolving into the Rotom Phone. And now we start to approach Legends ZA. It seems like Lumia City is in the middle of a major revitalization under the guidance of Quasartico Inc. to make the city habitable for both humans and Pokemon. However, some of these Pokemon are turning into rogue Megas, causing concern for the city's safety. And if you want to know more, then I guess it's time to check out the game. Also, I didn't know where else to put this, but Lita of Team MZ is a dancer, which means I'm pretty sure she's going to have some kind of relationship with Tierno. I don't know how yet, I'm just calling it now while I can. And now it's been kind of a long video, so I'm going to let you go. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.